Hey guys, what's going on? It's Filmington, and in this video we're going to be talking about the unanticipated call-up to the major leagues and how that could affect a player's hobby, because I think that this is one of the single greatest risks of investing in a prospect. You know, with a lot of prospects, we can kind of forecast, maybe not the exact day where they'll get called up, but a window of time. When they get called up out of the blue, and a lot of people don't expect it, then it really shakes things up. So before we get into the impact that could have, let's talk about the conventional way to invest in prospects, what a lot of people would say is the only way. It's something that I've had some success doing over the last few years. Wander Franco, J-Rod, Bobby Witt. These are guys that I would buy into, whether they're in rookie ball, A ball, double A. I'm buying into them before they get called up, and I'm also selling out of them before they get called up. So this way you're avoiding that most difficult bridge, which is either from, most players will get promoted either from double A or triple A to the big show. And that's the most difficult bridge because the disparity of pitching and of talent is the greatest between those levels, minor leagues to the majors. But also, once a player gets called up to the big leagues, their hype really starts to wear off. You know, people feel like they understand who that person is, who that player is. If they don't produce right away out of the gate, they could figure it out maybe a year or two later. But for a lot of people, they just kind of move on and they focus on the next guy if they can't show that they can succeed at the major league level. So that hype bubble kind of blows up after they get called up. The mystery or mystifying nature of that player and his potential kind of fades away when they get called up. I tend to focus on the top 10 to 20 prospects because what you can benefit from is, of course, the gradual buildup of hype, but also the off-season hype cycle. What we saw over the last year or the last off-season was that the hobby was really honed in on maybe 5 or 6 players. We saw Juan Soto, we saw Fernando Tatis, their values kind of climb in that November through January lull period of the offseason. There's really not much going on with baseball activity, and the Baseball America list gets updated in January. It gets updated more often than annually, but that's, I think, the time where most people look at it and notice it, because again, there's really not much going on in the way of baseball news. And Bobby Witt and J-Rod were part of that, I would call, 5 or 6 core players that started to get more inflows of capital, started to get more attention. Man, it was good for their hobby, obviously. They didn't have to do much, they didn't have to produce, and their value kind of went up because people were anticipating their major league debut the next year. So Corbin Carroll, he's the guy, really the subject. I know we haven't brought him up yet, but he's the guy that got called up out of the blue. And maybe he wouldn't have been, you know, he doesn't quite have the pedigree of a J-Rod or even a Witt, where maybe he wouldn't have been a top 3 prospect anyways, and maybe the attention would have went to somebody like Anthony Volpe or Gunnar Henderson if he doesn't get called up, or somebody else, who knows. But, you know, what happens when players get called up to the big show, their values often fall, and this is regardless of performance. Of course, if they exceed expectations in a big way and light the world on fire, then yes, they'll sustain their hobby values, and yes, they might even continue to go up. We saw that in the case of Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris this year. But these guys weren't really considered to be top 10 prospects, and their hobbies were kind of small. And this is something we'll get into, is the supply of cards they have is very small. I don't think they have a first Bowman non-autograph card. I don't think they were in Sapphire either. So dealing with a smaller supply here. But the reason why everybody else's values go down, you look at Riley Green, who out of the gate did okay, did fine. Probably met that middle of the pack outcome for Riley Green. Adley Rutschman has actually exceeded expectations on a per plate appearance basis. He's probably been, you know, you could argue just as good as J-Rod, and his values have gone down after the call-up. The reason why this happens, especially within that first week or two after call-up, is because the total supply increases for what's for sale. Current auctions, current bin listings, people trying to sell stuff on Instagram and Facebook and all other platforms. And they're trying to do that because they're trying to mitigate risk, right? They're trying to cash out. They're playing that conventional game like everybody else, where they sell the said player before they make their debut. And something that I've been able to do is, when you can forecast, maybe not the day that they'll get called up, but you understand the window of time. Usually that's around the arbitration deadline in April and or the Super 2 deadline in June. So you know somebody like Wander Franco, J-Rod, Bobby Witt, Luis Robert, Chris Bryant, Ronald Acuna, you know these guys are going to get called up in the first half of the season. You just don't know when. But what I was able to do with Wander Franco is when he was called up in, I believe it was June of 2021, I was able to have already exited 85% of my total position. So the news of him getting called up comes, and maybe there's between 24 to 72 hours of that first game happening, and I'm able to sell off the last 10 to 15%. Maybe I'm still holding 5%. That's not a big deal. And when you're able to kind of forecast that window, you get a more gradual smoothing of market values probably, where people are able to kind of manage their positions a little bit better. Now, when you get an unexpected call-up like Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson might face this too, is you get a lot of people like me that are sitting on their entire PC collection inventory of said player, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, damn it, we have to manage our risk. Like, I might actually list a few cards, even though prices will come down, because that supply is going to be crazy. And let me tell you, Facebook groups, people are listing not just one card of Corbin Carroll, but between 2 to 7 cards of him. They're trying to disguise it with like posts of other players too, and prices can be higher than comps, at comps, or lower than comps, but there's not a lot of interest. And this is going to put pressure on current market values of Corbin Carroll, because there's more sellers than buyers, there's more supply than demand, and it's unfortunate. and some of my cards of him are actually out for grading, so there's that too. So why is it unexpected? I thought that because he missed pretty much all of 2021 with a shoulder injury, he didn't play in 2020 because of COVID, he was drafted in 2019, pretty sure he's got under 150 games played in the minor leagues if you add up across all levels. I thought that Arizona, because they're not competing, would have waited and try to get that extra year of control by, at a minimum, bringing him up next year in mid to late April. He's shown everything that he probably could to show that he's completed his development cycle. Whether those skills translate to the big leagues or not, we'll see. Going on the track record of late, it doesn't look like he has a more than 50% probability to succeed, just based on all the struggles all the other prospects have had, except for a few exceptions that we mentioned. I think he checks the boxes, which is why I bought into him. But, I don't know. We'll see. All I can do at this point is root for him. Maybe I'll list, again, a few cards just to manage risk, even though I'll probably take a hit. But I think he's facing a lefty tonight. The game, I think, is starting right about now, so maybe after I posted this, hopefully he's got his first Major League home run. We'll see. But tomorrow he faces Aaron Nola, so who I think might be coming off a complete game shutout. So, all right, that's it, guys. The unexpected call-up, although it seems like a great thing, is very nightmarish for most top prospects, I would say. All right, guys, that's it. Filmington out.